Hello everybody and welcome to the Cisco Community Expert Series webcast. Today we are going to talk about the overview of the Cisco's Branch Routing Portfolio. My name is Hilda Artiaga and I am a Community Manager of the Cisco Community and the host of today's presentation. Before we start, there are a couple of events and activities that I would like to share with you. So firstly, we are having this Ask the Expert following the webcast. That is that if you have any questions just after this session, or just maybe a couple of days after this session, you thought about a couple of things that Meena mentioned, or Shameel mentioned, or Eric mentioned as well, you just can post your questions in this forum and they will be answered to all of them till Friday, May the 3rd. So all the events and all the activities that I'm going to mention right now, they're going to be placed on the chat, so you can access to those. Also, we would like to invite you to participate in this Cisco Community Ask the Expert event. This is an event only open for customers and partners, but it's very useful because they are going to talk about how to migrate the Cisco phones from one cluster to another. That means when you have an old phone and you want to move them into the new call manager CCM, all these people, Luis Yanez and David Woodhock, they will be answering to all your questions, also till Friday, May the 3rd. And also we have a couple of events related to this topic. One of them is the big 5G event that's going to have place from May the 6th to May 8th. And Eric Nelson, who is on this presentation, he will be covering that topic. You can find all the details just right now on the screen, and they will be placed on the chat as well, just for all of you who are interested on this topic. And also, we would like to invite you to the 5G zone, which is going to have place on Cisco Live, the next Cisco Live in San Diego. So you're invited to visit that zone to learn more about this technology as well. More details will be placed on the chat as well. And also, we would like to invite you to become an event top contributor. So how does that work? We'd like to invite you to participate in the community so we can recognize all the effort that you're doing. We have different kind of awards presenting on the community, so you can become a Spotlight Award, you can become a Hall of Fame member if you work very hard, and also a VIP. We recognize people who are doing a great job on the community. And well, how we can do that and how we can become that, everything is just working together since this is a community. So one of the things that we would like to request you and ask you for is just rate all the content that you see on the community. That helps us to recognize quality content in the community and also to encourage people to keep participating. That means if someone gives you a very good answer to your question, you can please give them a helpful vote. The way to do it is very easy. Just download the post that you have there. There's a tiny star. You just click on there and you already gave a helpful vote. Or if they give you like the proper answer, you can also give that as an accepted solution. That helps us out to recognize people, and as I mentioned before, we do recognize people every month. And well, since we have a lot of things to talk today, I'm going to be starting right now by presenting all the panels that we have, which is a very great panel with experienced people. Ladies first, so I will start with Meena Shar. She's a technical marketing engineer from Cisco 4000 series in integrated service routers and modular platforms. She has worked in Cisco for 1 decade, and prior to joining the marketing engineering team, she worked as a business unit escalation engineer. Today, she specializes in quality of service, network-based application recognition, and programmability in the integrated service routers 4000. Sorry about that. So welcome, Meena, to this event, and thank you for joining. Then we have Eric Nelson. He's a technical marketing engineer for 4G and 5G technologies and for integrated service routers as well. He has been in Cisco for almost 2 decades, and in his first 15 years, he has provided the support to different service providers on technologies as ATM, time division, multiplexing, voice, and IP voice, among others. Prior to joining Cisco, Eric worked as a telecommunications company supporting ATM backhaul. Currently, he supports cellular providers and in the last market transition to wireless, last mile to customer premises equipment. So welcome, Eric, and thank you for joining today. And finally, not at least, we have Shameel Ummer. He's a product technical marketing engineer for the integrated service routers as well and modular platform. He's responsible for crypto VPN technology and all ISR and ISR platforms, as well as for routing MPLS, NAT, transport security technologies as well. Shameel joined Cisco 2 years ago, and before he joined the marketing engineering team, he worked as a network consultant engineer for Cisco Security Solutions in Advanced Services. Shameel holds a CCIE certification in routing and switching, and another one service provider, security and data center. So welcome, Shameel. Thank you so much for joining this event today. All right, so for all of you who want to have a deep look to this presentation and would like to double check everything that's happening here, you can download the presentation and have a look. The link is just right now on the chat, so please feel free to join. And finally, for all of you who are in this session, please feel free to post all of your questions on the Q&A panel. We try to use the Q&A panel. It's allocated on the right side, usually at the bottom of your desktop. And if you're on the mobile desktop or iPad or any of those ones, you can find it also right there on the option. Please place all your questions. It's more easier for us just to have a look. And finally, we have a little new WebEx for all of you who haven't had experience to use it before. Just please make sure that when you are in the middle of your screen, you can see a drop-down menu, which is marked just right now on the screen, as you can see, with a red cube. Please make sure you select the screen of the person who is presenting so you can follow up this presentation properly. And well, that's everything from my side, and we hope you learn a lot from this session today. So Eric, welcome, and please, I will pass you the microphone, so please feel free to start this presentation.
Okay, thanks. Welcome, everybody. I'm hoping I should have my my screen should be up. You should be seeing the first of my slides here. So what I'm going to cover is an overview of the routing edge, which is the ISR 1000 series and the new ISR 900 series, the migration from the ISR 800 series to the 1K and the 900, and then I will pass it over for an ISR 4K series update that Meena is going to be doing. So our first question is, does your enterprise plan to move towards cellular as an active transport? As I go through the ISR 1000 series, you'll notice that we've put a great deal of or we foresee a great deal of migration from TDM circuits to cellular as the last mile or wireless last mile. And then we're just kind of curious as to whether any of you have gone to 4G as a primary transport for some of your remote or offices, small offices, whether you're planning to, whether you're waiting for LTE Advanced Pro, which is the next major release of the LTE technology, or whether you're waiting for 5G. So anyways, so that's our first question. So if you could answer that, that would be great. On to slide 16, the introduction of the ISR 1000. So we are trying to stay in the naming convention with the ISR 4K, which is our big modular platform that Meena will be going over shortly. But the ISR 1000 is our new CPE for the small office, home office, medium-sized office, M2M, various use cases. We redesigned it with a, let me kind of backtrack here. I'll go over the 1000, I'll go over the 900, and then I'll talk about some of the features. So the ISR 1000 is a branch router that is going to handle your small office, medium office, remote office. It has a new core processor that's going to severely increase your capabilities, as you'll see as I compare and contrast the 800 series to the 1000. All in an effort to keep up with my polling question is, our drive towards 5G and wireless last mile. So here's our current enterprise routing portfolio. Another look at it, we basically have the ISR 900. It was just recently released, very small. Has both AC, DC powered. It's classic iOS based, where the ISR 1K is the new branch router that will be considered fixed chassis, but will be SD-WAN capable. So it will run classic iOS XE and SD-WAN. And then, of course, we'll get up into the bigger 4000 series. So sort of real quick, on the 800 to 1000 sort of migration, you're going to see, if you're familiar with our 800 series, we have basically kind of two different folds, right? We have an 880, 890 series, which is a little bit bigger box than the 819 series, a little bit more capabilities, but essentially still a small office, home office type box. In the migration from the 890 to the 1100, you'll see that we now support not just PoE, but PoE Plus, more wireless domains. Our integrated Wi-Fi will be 802.11ac Wave 2. The IPsec capability is sort of the big deal there, right? As we make this drive towards 5G and gigabit wireless last mile, we need something that's going to be able to hang with those kind of speeds. So we're capable of doing about 350 megabits of IPsec over these boxes today, and we'll get some efficiency, economies of scale with newer releases of iOS XE and SD-WAN. It is a quad-core processor supporting additional VLANs, and like I had mentioned, iOS XE, and then of course you'll see SD-WAN ready, meaning it does run SD-WAN. Here's more of our M2M solution, which is the 1109 series versus the 819. As you'll see, it's LTE to LTE advanced, and since the 1109 is modular, we'll also support LTE Advanced Pro, which is coming out here in the next 8 to 10 weeks. And then it will also support 5G once available. Same thing, additional wireless domains, Wave 2 APs. It does, it's more of a machine-to-machine, so the IPsec requirement probably won't be as high. So we can kind of tweak it to help run it in cooler temperatures, because a lot of your machine-to-machine stuff isn't going to be environmentally controlled. So that's the big difference between the 819 and the 1109. Here's a quick product overview. The next few slides are going to be kind of somewhat eye charts. Just make sure I'm on slide 23 with everybody. You'll see we have the C1111X, we have the C11-1X, AP, 4P, the 1101, the 1109. Basically, what you're going to see is the 1111 are basically fixed chassis, which means the LTE in there is integrated into it. In the 1101, the 1109, we moved to a pluggable technology for LTE. We do support LTE Advanced across the entire 1K product line. With various SKUs, we can support VDSL, ADSL, G.fast. We come with and without Wi-Fi. Now, the line there that says managed switch ports, 8 gig, 4 gig, that's where you're going to see in the naming convention, the 8P, 4P. I'll give you a number of switch ports. We don't plan to support voice on these as of yet. That may come in the future, but as of right now, it's not committed. Once again, the same VLAN support that I had mentioned in the earlier slides. Switching capacity at line rate, those are the big difference between the 819, 890s, and the new 1Ks is, of course, the 10100, 1000, or gigabit switch ports instead of 10100 switch ports. And on the fixed chassis 1100s, we also support PoE now. So we support 4 ports of PoE, or 2 ports of PoE Plus on the 8-port version, and 4 ports of PoE, or 2 ports of PoE Plus on the 4-port version. But we can support a mix. So if you want 2 ports of PoE and 1 port of PoE Plus, as long as you're within the electrical budget of the power supply, you should be okay. So slide 24. It's just, like I said, the next few slides are going to be a little bit of eye charts, but basically we've gone to a 4-core processor from the dual core of the 800 series. We've gone, some of them support 4 gig of memory, some of them support 8 gig of memory. And the big requirement between the 4 and 8 gig is with regards to SD-WAN ready, right? Our SD-WAN, which is the Tele acquisition, has enhanced security features that require additional memory. So while they were all capable of running SD-WAN, the enhanced security features like application layer firewalls and IPS and whatnot all require 8 gig of memory. So we do have the ISR1K series that supports the 8 gig and the additional, the enhanced security features. With regards to the console port, what you'll see though is that on the bigger one, the 1111 boxes, you'll see a traditional RJ45 console port. On the smaller versions, just because of real estate, we've had to move to a micro USB console port. You can use a typical, any sort of micro USB cable to connect your laptops if you want to get into them. But we also do sell, and I'll show a picture of it a little bit, a micro USB to RJ45 dongle in case for any of your installations that are already pre-wired to support RJ45. The big, one of the other big gotchas on this, one of the things I want to point out on this particular page is the second to last column, the 1109 4P. You'll notice the operating temperature is quite extended compared to the rest of them. That's -20 to 55 degrees Celsius. So that particular box has an extended temperature so that it can go into things like kiosks in somewhat remote facilities. Now, it's not truly hardened because there is no IP rating for water, so you just can't expose it to the elements, but it does have an extended temperature range. Here is another, like I said, like quite a few eye charts here. Here's the 1109 and the 1101 with regards to the number of ports and whatnot, what you'll see. It's kind of a little bit, yeah, you guys will get the deck. You can read this, look it up if you want. Here's more of a compare and contrast, this one, between the 800 series and the ISR1K, right? So the old 880s, 890s run iOS Classic, and the 1Ks will run iOS XE and or XD SD-WAN. So what you'll see is they will all support it with 4 gig of memory. The enhanced feature sets will require the additional, the 1111 or the X series, which will have 8 gig of memory, and those will be SD-WAN capable. Here is, just so that you know how we named, so that you can look at any SKU and I know exactly what's in it, right? So we went with the ISR1K, and then the next 3 digits are all going to give you something with regards to what it is, right? So it's a little out over here. So the 1101, the 1109, so that third octet being a 1 or a 0 is going to indicate whether it's got 1 or 2 routed WAN ports, gigabit routed WAN ports. The last octet being a 1, a 6, or a 7, or a 3 is going to let you know whether it's just straight Ethernet or whether it has ADSL, VDSL, or G.fast support. Right? Then you'll have the dash, and it'll either be a 4P, 8P, 2P. That's going to tell you how many switch ports are on that particular model. The next one will be LTE-A, which will tell you, so on the fixed chassis, it'll say LTE-A, which lets you know that it's LTE Advanced or Category 6 LTE. Or it'll say LTE-P or LTE-2P. LTE-P means that it supports the pluggable LTE Advanced Pro module. I'll show you a picture of that here shortly. Or 2P meaning it supports dual pluggable LTE modules. And of course, then you're followed by a W and a number or a letter, WB, WA, W. The W means wireless, and the B, of course, is the domain that we're supporting. In the U.S., we support wireless domain B. So the next few are going to be some hardware slides. This is the front panel of the what we call the fixed chassis 1100, right? It comes in a 4-port, 8-port version. And what you're going to see here, notice is that the LTE is integrated into the box, and then you have the traditional TNC connectors that plug directly into the box for your LTE. You got your 8 ports of switch ports. You got your 2 routed Ethernet ports, one of which can be either copper or an SFP. You'll see a little metal cover there. That's where your SIM cards will go. It supports dual SIM with auto SIM switching, which basically means that the box ships with all the firmware that we support. And if you insert AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, Bell, Rogers, up in Canada, whatever, it will automatically load the appropriate firmware for the active SIM card. So we call that auto SIM switching, which means, of course, if I put an AT&T and a T-Mobile SIM in there and I want to be able to switch between those providers, I can. Whatever the active SIM is, the modem will automatically load the appropriate firmware for it. Then, of course, we go to the console port, which you'll see there is the traditional RJ45 with, of course, the micro USB below it. This bigger chassis of the 1K is going to be the last one with the RJ45 port on it. You'll see what the smaller 1101, 1109s look like here in a second. Here's the same chassis, only with 4 ports of 4 switch ports. Here is the smallest of all of our boxes, which is the 1101 4P, which is basically just a 4-port switch with a 1-port with a 1-port gigabit WAN port. Here's the 1101-4P LTEP. So you see that it's an Ethernet only, 1 routed port, 4P, 4 switch ports, LTEP, meaning it supports LTE pluggable. There's the pluggable module you'll see, and you'll get a closer look at the pluggable module here in a second. Here is the 1109 series, which is, we call this the M2M series because, once again, the extended temperature range on it. So it's a little bit more hardened. Now, for a lot of MDEV cases, you're not going to necessarily need LTE Advanced Category 6, which supports up to 300 megabit down, 50 megabit up. Your consumption won't be that on some machine-to-machine where you're collecting sensor data and whatnot. So we make an 1109 2P, which is basically the small box you see on your left there. That'll be a Category 4. It helps keep the cost down for something that's just, like I said, collecting sensor data or whatnot. And then, of course, we have the 1109 4P, which supports 4 ports of pluggable, but also supports dual pluggable modules, meaning it can have 2 LTE modules and both of them can be active. So you can go active-active and load balance between Verizon and Sprint, Verizon and T-Mobile, T-Mobile and AT&T. Here's a close-up look at the 1109 2P. You'll see 2 Ethernet ports, 1 WAN port. You'll see that there's our micro USB console port, and of course our SIM slots, because this is the 1109 2P is not a pluggable; it's integrated. Here's the 1109s. Once again, same sort of pictures. I do want to point out, you'll see in this picture an extra set of antennas on the 1109 there. The 1109 4P can come with integrated Wi-Fi, and if it does, the Wi-Fi antennas are external. I probably should have pointed out on the 1101s and the 1111 modules. Those come with integrated Wi-Fi, but those Wi-Fi antennas are built into the box, so you won't see external Wi-Fi antennas on those. Slide 37, this is where the 1109 4P, LTE 2P, 2P means dual pluggable. There's the support for it. A picture on the right, you'll see there's our micro USB console cable again, the 1 gigabit WAN port and our 4-port switch. So for those who have pre-wired for RJ45 and you're migrating from an 800 series to a 1K, here is the micro USB to RJ45 adapter. It doesn't ship with the box. You'll need to make sure you click, add that when ordering. And here's what the pluggable module looks like. So it is an LTE Category 6 LTE Advanced modem. So, I mean, what does that mean? Well, it supports Release 11 of the 3GPP spec, supports up to 300 megabit down, 50 megabit up, supports carrier aggregation, supports dying gas, supports dual SIMs. So you'll see there's a SIM cover on the side in which you can insert 2 SIMs. Just like all of our Category 6 stuff or LTE Advanced stuff, supports, auto SIM switching, which will, whatever the active SIM is, it will load the appropriate firmware for it. Like all of our LTE modules, it supports GPS, both active GPS and assisted GPS. That kind of covers the 900, or the 1K. Let me kind of go into the 1000 here, starting on slide 41. Those of you following home. The 926, right, is small office kiosk type machine to machine, 4-port switch, 1 gigabit Ethernet, comes with and without DSL, comes with and without Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi. The 900 does not support Wi-Fi, but it does support DSL and it supports LTE. Just real quick here, what you're looking at is four models, the 921, 931, 926, 927. Big difference between them versus the 1K. The 900 series runs classic iOS and will only run classic iOS. Won't run iOS XE, won't run SD-WAN. Category 4 modems, Category 4 LTE modems, supports for 802 that VDSL, ADSL, no support for voice. It does support additional VLANs over the 1000 series that has to do with the platform itself, and no PoE. Unlike the 1K, which is an ARM processor, the 9K is an XL86-based box. You'll notice it does support an operating temperature 0 to 50, whereas the 1109, if you are going to be in some, I don't want to say fully ruggedized versions, but if you're going to be in some unenvironmentally controlled areas, then the 1109 supporting down to -20 may be your better bet. Now the 900 does have internal power supplies, so they will have sort of your traditional AC 3-prong plug on the box and run with an internal power supply. The 926, 927 will have that external power supply, similar to the way the 1K does. Similar to the 1K, we have a naming convention, the 900 series router, obviously. The 1, the 6, and the 7 basically talk about whether it's a gigabit Ethernet only, or whether it supports ADSL, VDSL, and the different flavors of that, and of course the number of ports, 4P, number of switch ports. Here is a quick reference guide for how we migrate. So the 900 series really sort of a direct replacement for the 881, 886, 897. Polling question number 2 is, when does your enterprise plan to roll out or move to SD-WAN? So if you look at the transitions in the marketplace, a lot of small businesses and a lot of enterprises are migrating from traditional operating systems to more of an SD-WAN kind of environment because they're trying to load balance or intelligently load balance multiple paths. So the question is, do you plan to move to an SD-WAN in the next 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9, sometime in the next year or so, or do you have no plans to move? Some of your environments may not be able to take advantage of SD-WAN. So kind of interested to see what your plans are there.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
I will pass on the microphone into Meena. So Meena.
Thank you, Hilda. Just give me a minute and let me share my screen. Okay. Hi everyone, this is Meena Shar. I'm the product TME for the ISR4000 platform. I'm going to be taking you through the product portfolio, and we will also be doing a technical deep dive of the 4K architecture. So before we get into the product portfolio, let's talk some history. I want to take you all the way back to the time we launched the first purpose-built branch router, the Cisco 2500 series. This was primarily meant for Ethernet and token ring networks. We then launched the Cisco 2600 series, which introduced modularity at the branch. We also had some inbuilt security features and some early firewall capabilities. This was also the time when we started having conversations about introducing services at the branch. That led to the launch of the first generation of the integrated services routers. The ISR G1s introduced a variety of WAN and LAN capabilities, and most importantly, the G1s supported purpose-built general compute network modules for application services. What more does the branch need? Well, with a staggering increase in the number of users, devices, and services at the branch, we needed more horsepower. And that is when we came up with the ISR G2. A few years after the launch of the G2s, branch dynamics was changing considerably. With multiple WAN capabilities and services, the branch now needed more intelligence for routing traffic through optimal WAN links and to reduce loss and to route faster too. We needed high availability at the branch. Cloud-hosted services were also on the rise, and users at the branch were branching off from the data centers and accessing services directly from the cloud. We needed to do something disruptive at the branch to support software-defined WAN. The solution was to split the control and data planes of the router. That way we had two CPUs, one for iOS XE and services management, and another for forwarding. The 4400 was the first router to be launched in the 4K product family. A year later, the rest of the 4K routers were launched. The most recently launched 4461 is the highest performing ISR and can provide up to 7 Gbps of crypto throughput. We have also featured the ISR 1K here, although it's out of scope of the slides that I will be covering. Eric just covered it. So I just wanted to show here what our branch routing portfolio looks like. So as Eric already spoke about the 1K, it has both fixed and modular options. Okay, so that's with the history, and this basically shows how the branch router segment has evolved and where we are today. Now, this is a snapshot of the entire product family of ISR 4000. This basically gives a good overview of how the products are categorized in the 4K product family. So the first important category is the form factor. So we have 1 RUs, we have 2 RUs, and the latest 4461 is a 3 RU. And another way you can look at this is also from a performance point of view, which is primarily the way you make a decision as to which router you will position. So all of these routers are stacked in the order of their performance, the throughput that they can give at the maximum capacity. So that is most likely at the boost license. And another important way where you can look at these platforms is basically from an architecture perspective. So it's important to understand the architecture, especially for the 4K, because it gives you a good way to understand how some of these licenses work on the 4K portfolio, because we want to make sure that when you buy a license, you get the maximum out of it. And for that, it is important to understand the architecture of these platforms. So basically, we have, So basically, we have two kinds of architecture. One for the 4400, which basically has a split CPU, where the control plane and the data plane are on separate CPUs. And the other kind is where we have a multi-core CPU, but the control plane and the data plane, they reside on the same CPU. And all of these routers are SD-WAN ready today. They're ready to go with the SD-WAN software available on CCO. I also want to let you know that we have QA managers actively monitoring the QA panel, so feel free to ask questions. Okay, so now to go into the architecture. So let's start with the 4200 and the 4321, which are at the lower end of the product family. The 4321 and 4321 share a similar architecture. The control plane and the data plane, they co-reside on an Intel Atom Rangeley CPU. They of course have the differences which contribute to which is the CPU clock rate. They're clocked at different rates, and that contributes to the performance difference. So the IOS resides on one of the cores. We have a separate core dedicated for running services, and then there's a separate core for packet input-output operations and for crypto encryption decryption operations. And then there's a separate core that is dedicated just for packet processing. So this multi-core architecture is beneficial in several ways compared to the previous platforms where a single CPU, a single core had to do everything. Although we have a single CPU here with the 4221 and 4321, there are multiple cores, and each core takes a responsibility, and these responsibilities are never mixed up. There are cases where we will swap out responsibilities, but that's in the higher end of the platforms, and I will be going over that. As far as the 4221 and 4321 are concerned, each of these cores have dedicated functionalities, and that's what each of these cores do. Now to the 4331 and the 4351, these are very interesting platforms. So the architecture is similar to what we just discussed. The data plane and control plane still reside on the same CPU. Only difference is that we have more cores allocated for packet processing and additional cores allocated for running services. Now there is a big advantage for the 4331 and 4351 when it comes to boost license. So Shameel, the ISR 4K TME who will be going after me, he will be covering licensing in detail. But from an architecture perspective, I want to talk a little bit about boost license here. So you probably have heard of the boost license already. Basically allows the router to perform at its maximum capacity, delivering the maximum throughput that the box can. There are no shapers. Basically, there's nothing that's restricting your throughput. So how do we do this? How do we achieve this? Now for the 4331 and 4351, what we do is that we increase the packet performing ability of the platforms by moving some of the services cores to the data plane. So the services cores are in the control plane, and we move some of these services to the data plane. That way, the router can process packets faster, and more number of packets can pass through the box. Now for the 4400. So the 4400, like I mentioned in the history slide, it was kind of revolutionary when it was launched because it was the first platform, not really the first. ASR1K also had a split CPU architecture. The only difference between the 4K was primarily meant to imitate the ASR1K, but it was more intended to work on the branch level. So it does not have custom-built Cisco proprietary ASICs for control plane and data plane like the ASR1K, but we do have separate CPUs. So we have an Intel x86 processor which hosts the control plane, and then we have a KVM processor on which the data plane resides. As you can see with each platform, the number of cores for packet processing increases. This contributes to the performance difference between these platforms. Another advantage to having these kind of core allocations, and it's also specific to the license level, like so Shameel will be talking more about it, but so each of these cores are allocated based on the license level. Like for example, for the 4451, at factory default state, we have 6 cores allocated for data plane. And when you implement the performance license, we have 10 cores. All 10 cores are being used for with the performance license. But now when it comes to the boost license, can we move the services course into data plane like we did for the 4300? No. So we cannot do that for the 4400. That's because the services cores are on a separate CPU. So I want to go back to the slide for the 4300 here. So that's the advantage of having the control plane and the data plane on the same CPU. You can swap some of these cores to do a different job. So the services core can be moved to the data plane for additional packet processing. Now, when you buy the boost license for the 4400, you're not going to be able to do that. So the boost license for the 4400 is not really going to be adding any boost there. We will be merely removing the shaper and just letting the box run in the wild. Whereas in the 4300, you will actually be able to get a boost out of the boost license. Now to the 4461 architecture. It's very similar to the 4451. It also has the split CPU architecture, and as you can see, it has 16 cores. So that contributes to the ultra high performance that the 4461 can deliver. It is the fastest ISR that we have. It can guarantee 10 Gbps of raw throughput with no features enabled and 7 gigs of crypto throughput. That's really high for a branch environment. And with the ISR 4461, there is one difference with the way cores are allocated. There is no difference between the factory default or performance license. All 16 cores are used, but then the throughput will be restricted with a shaper. Another advantage is that the 4461 also has a DDR4 DRAM, whereas the rest of the boxes have a DDR3 DRAM. Now to talk about the 4K packet flow. So we've discussed the data plane, we discussed the control plane. I want to bring your attention to the multi-gigabit fabric here. So basically this is nothing but a backplane switch. So it basically provides an interface for the NIMs and service modules to connect to the data plane. And each NIM module basically has two 1 gig link connections to the backplane switch, and each service module has one 10 gig link connection to the backplane switch. So for the NIM module, it uses only 1 gig link for data plane connectivity, and another gig link is used for module to module communication. Now, module to module communication is very interesting from a licensing perspective. I'll show you why. So now this is an example where traffic enters through the front panel gigabit Ethernet ports and leaves through the NIM module, or vice versa. Now you can see this traffic has to go through the data plane course. Now if your license is, if your traffic is shaped, it means that your traffic is going through the data plane. Your license is implemented in the data plane. Now, is there a way for traffic to maybe just bypass licensing? What if you want to just bypass the shaping and just let the box perform at its maximum level? That's possible when traffic goes entirely through the backplane switch only. So that's possible when you have module-to-module communication happening, when traffic enters through a NIM Ethernet switch and leaves out via UCSC module. The traffic is not shaped because it does not go through the data plane at all. You should also remember that this traffic must be entirely layer 2, because anytime the traffic is layer 3 or any layer 3 service is applied to the traffic, it will have to go through the data plane course, and that's when traffic gets shaped or your license is implemented. Now for a closer look at each of the routers. So the first one is the 4461. Like I said earlier, it's the fastest ISR router that we have. All of our 4K routers are SD-WAN ready today. The 4461 was the latest to be added with 16.11.1 available on CCO since the last 2 weeks. We have an SD-WAN ready image for 4461 also. The 4461 is a 3RU router, and as you can see, it's also a module-dense router. Basically, it can have more modules than any of the other ISR 4K routers. Another unique thing about the 4461 is that it has two 10 gig ports on the front panel. These are the onboard WAN ports, and this is the only router that has 10 gig ports. The rest of the routers are all combo ports. They can be either RJ45 or SSPs. Now, there's a very interesting thing here about the number of modules that you can have on this router. So you see the 3 NIM slots on the top rack. Of course, you can have all the 3 NIM slots filled. And then there are 4 single-wide slots. But you cannot have 4 single-wide service modules in there. So that again goes back to the backplane switch. The backplane switch is short of 1 port if we fill up all the 4 service module slots with single-wide modules. So the workaround for this is you can have either 3 single-wide modules, or you can have 2 single-wide and 1 double-wide module, or you can have 2 double-wide modules. So all of this information is in the data sheet if you want to look at the module combinations that are supported. We support WAN MACsec, and it has 2 USB Type A ports. It has an RJ45 console port, aux port, and there is also a management Ethernet port, which is available across all the ISR 4K platforms. The management Ethernet port is in a separate VRF, so that way you don't accidentally send data traffic out, and it can be used for out-of-band management. The DRAM on the 4461 can also go all the way up to 32 gigs. So this is again very unique to the 4461. The rest of the platforms in the higher end can go up to 16 gigs. The 4451 is quite similar to the 4461 for the key features, except that it's a 2RU and it does not have 10 gig ports, although it has 4 combo ports, all of them RJ45 or SSP supported. You can have 2 single-wide modules or 1 double-wide service module, and then 3 NIM slots. And another important thing to note about the 4400s is that all the 4400 routers support dual internal AC or DC power supply. We do not support dual power supply in the other ISR 4K platforms. It's very unique to the 4400s only. Now to the 4300, it's very similar to the 4451, except it has different CPU and a different clock rate. And then it has 3 combo ports instead of 4 on the 4400s. And from the 4300s, we only support single internal AC or DC power supply. It also has a management Ethernet VRF for out-of-band management. The 4331 is similar to the 4351. It's the top rack, and it has 2 NIM slots and 1 service module. So all of these platforms, they all differ in the number of front panel ports that we support, dual internal power supply or not, the number of cores that are allocated in the data plane. So basically, you will be deciding on which platform to position based on the number of NIMs or services that you want to run on the platform and what capacity, whether you want a double-wide UCSC or a single-wide UCSC, and the number of front panel ports you want, the PoE capability, and all that. You can also see that the 4331, 4321, and the 4221 just have 1 USB Type A port, whereas the rest of the high-end platforms have 2 USB ports. Okay. Now for the power supply, so you can quickly see here that we don't support PoE with DC power supply, so that's something to remember. And all of these platforms support DC power supply except the 4221 and the 4321. And all of the platforms have internal power supplies except again the 4221 and the 4321. And with the power supplies, with the platforms that support dual power supplies, You can either configure the power supplies in redundant mode where one of the power supplies will remain in standby state. So when the primary fails, the standby can take over. Or you can configure through CLI to let the power supplies operate in boost mode. So this will basically combine both the power supplies together, and you will have additional power to power up your PoE devices. Okay, so now that we've covered the portfolio and we've talked about what the hardware can offer, I also want to make sure that we cover a very important aspect here, which is trustworthy systems. So trustworthy systems basically makes sure that hardware and software authenticity is guaranteed for customers. So how do we do this? So basically Cisco has, there's a Cisco proprietary chip called the Trust Anchor module. It's an epoxy resin coated chip that resides on the motherboard. So if someone tries to scoop the chip, it will simply break. So we make sure that privacy is guaranteed at all times. And the Trust Anchor module hosts several important certificates, the most important one being the SUDI certificate. The SUDI certificate basically has the serial number and the product ID of the platform, and it is signed by the Cisco root CA. It is stored in a secure location on the Trust Anchor module. What basically happens is that if the software were to detect that this is a counterfeit hardware, the first thing that happens when the software, when iOS boots up, is validation of the SUDI certificate. Not just when the router is brought up. Say, for example, we have a variety of management solutions these days, and even when the router is remotely onboarded, say using DNA Center, DNA Center has an option to validate SUDI credentials before the router is onboarded. So basically, when the router comes up and just before onboarding happens, SUDI credentials are validated, and if invalid SUDI credentials are detected, the router will immediately will not be onboarded. It will go back to the planned state, or it will show a SUDI error or a SUDI authentication error. So this is especially useful when we use more zero-touch provision technologies, plug and play, and remote onboarding. So this is very useful in such scenarios where we have to make sure where customers need a way to find out if hardware is really authentic. Now to software authenticity. So the Trust Anchor module also has a piece of code called microloader. The microloader is also running in a very secure storage location. The microloader basically makes sure that the BIOS, it makes the first call for the BIOS. So we start from the BIOS. So software authenticity is not guaranteed just at the iOS XE level. We start from the very, very basic. The first second when the router is turned on, the BIOS boots up, and even before that, the microloader boots up to make sure that the BIOS is authentic. Then the BIOS runs a check on the ROM-on, and the ROM-on runs a check on the iOS XE. So basically, we build a chain of trust here, and we make sure that at every stage the router is booting up, the software is authentic. This is just to make sure that our routers, both from a hardware and software perspective, are entirely tamper-proof. Now, we have made sure that the hardware is authentic, the software is authentic. Now, what happens when the router is up and running? We need runtime defenses, and we have that built into the code. So we use several technologies to make sure that our router is protected against runtime issues. There are several kinds of attacks that can happen. So one example that I can think of is a code injection attack, where a hacker can basically inject his corrupt binaries into the code. And this can get compiled during runtime and can cause data infiltration issues, or can cause the router to crash, and there could be router unavailability issues. So in order to prevent this, we use several technologies when the code is written. These are some of the practices that are inbuilt within the code. So one of the things that I would like to call your attention to is address space randomization. So earlier days, the software used to run in the same memory location. So it just made things very easy for a hacker. He could just reverse engineer or he could just take guesses into finding out which memory location has which code, and he could basically inject his code binaries and have it compiled during runtime. Now, in order to prevent this, what we do is basically we scramble the memory location, so every time the code does not reside in the same memory location. That way, no reverse engineering or guessing can happen, and the code is secure. We also have other techniques where we make sure that each object call, when an object call happens, there is an integrity check there. The size of the object is verified. So if there is malicious code injected, then it's very easy to find out that the object size has changed, and then this will immediately cause the router to crash, or thereby we're making sure that no one is overhearing or listening on the wire to what your router is transmitting. So this is all to make sure that our hardware and software authenticity is guaranteed at all times. With that, I'm at the end of my session, and I would like to hand over the control to Hilda for polling question 3.
Thank you very much, Meena. Shameel, I'm just giving you the microphone, so you just can jump in and share your screen, please.
Sure, Hilda, thank you so much. So give me just a second. Let me share my screen. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining the session. Let me give a quick intro of myself. This is Shameel Ummer, Technical Marketing Engineer, ISR4K from Enterprise Networking Business Unit. So let me dive directly to the agenda of this session. So today I'll be covering like a brief, start brief with ISR4K platforms and supported interfaces and modules. Then we'll cover some of the technology feature sets supported on ISR4K, and we'll spend some good amount of time to discuss software packaging and licensing models. And lastly, we'll go through some overview of the Viptela Edge routers portfolio. So this is the same slide Meena had already discussed. So basically, I just want to give you some intro about ISR4K. So this is specifically designed for connecting your WAN enterprise branch locations. So the ISR 4000 consists of 3 series of routers: the 4400, the 4300, and the 4200. The common for the new 4000 family is that the platforms comes with fixed maximum performance level. So these default performance levels can be increased with performance on-demand license or the throughput license, which I'll be covering in the next slides. And the throughput varies between 1.2 Gbps all the way to 10 Gbps based on the platform you choose and the right throughput licenses. So as you see here, we support SD-WAN on all the ISR4K platforms. So it is SD-WAN ready. So here I will go through some of the technology features supported with ISR4K. So we offer advanced security features like IPsec VPN, control plane policing and protection, the QoS, RBAC, Cisco Trustworthy for policy enforcement for IPsec VPN and zone-based firewall, and so on. ISR4K is the best choice for customers who requires PCI data security standards and other regulatory compliance at their band size, because we offer IPS using SNOT rule sets which run on the separate service container on the ISR4K routers. And for the customers who need a DNS-based security, we offer Cisco Umbrella support on ISR4K, which is basically a cloud-based security solution that inspects the DNS queries sent over to the DNS server via low-secured medium such as internet. And when it comes to the unified communications, like we support features like local conferencing, the survivable remote site telephony, the SRST feature, the Cisco Unified Border Element, the Cube feature, and the Session Border Router, which is the SBC. And please make a note that UC features are not supported in ISR 4221. When it comes to routing and multicast, we support all sorts of traditional IPv4 and IPv6 routing with dynamic routing protocols, policy-based routing, and the performance routing. With the multicast, we do PIMS fast mode, static multicast routing, and we do support IPv6 multicast as well. So for the customers who want to deploy a local and dedicated wireless infrastructure for their branch or the WAN sites, we can host virtual wireless LAN controller on the UCSE blade servers installed on the ISR 4K SMX slots. Customers do not need to purchase a dedicated wireless hardware appliance for their enterprise WAN location for delivering wireless services to the end users. And for the customer who would need a backup or a redundant connection on their branch sites to their headquarters or the internet when the primary connection is no longer available, we offer wireless WAN modules with 3G, 4G, and LTE support on ISR 4K. And this wireless WAN connection can also be used as a primary connection, especially for small branch offices, retail location, or temporary work locations as such. With the integrated switching modules, like we support different forms of integrated switching modules with ISR 4K, which supports power over Ethernet. Now our customer can now connect the PoE capable devices like IP phones, access points, IoT devices onto the switch ports on the switch modules installed in the ISR 4K. And just to make a note, like PoE is not supported in 4221 platform. On rest all other platforms, we support power over Ethernet. When it comes to the application services, we do support performance routing, software-defined access, software-defined WAN, intelligent WAN, quality of services, and hierarchical QoS. Now let's talk about what are the different types of modules and interfaces supported on ISR 4K. So the modules in ISR 4K are either NIM or SMX. So NIM stands for Network Interface Modules, and the SMX stands for Enhanced Service Modules. The SMX modules are wider module type, mainly used for UCSE blade servers and high-density Ethernet switch modules. The NIM modules are basically half the size of SMX modules and generally used for WAN, voice, and low-density Ethernet interfaces. So the different categories of modules supported on ISR 4K are LAN, UCSE, voice, and WAN. So with the LAN switch modules, we support 16, 24, or 48 ports PoE with the SMX modules, and 4 or 8 ports switch modules with the NIM. So the 4-port NIM modules doesn't provide PoE, but the 8-port NIM modules comes with PoE and non-PoE options. Now the support for UCSE blades, whether it could be M1, M2, or M3 series, it provides enterprise network functions where we can host virtual application on the ISR 4K UCSE servers. The application can be virtual WAS, virtual wireless LAN controller, or even virtual firewall. Its compute and storage capacity provide high performance application hosting, which will reduce the capex and the total cost of ownership for an IT infrastructure, and thus enabling the branch in a box solution for our customers. In terms of the voice, we support 8, 16, 24, and 72 FXS ports, and 2, 4, and 12 FXS ports on the voice interface cards. In addition to that, we support the packet voice DSP module 4 to expand capabilities to provide voice and data support with 32, 64, 128, and 256 voice channels. When it comes to the WAN modules, the bandwidth supported on the WAN Ethernet interfaces can be either 1 gig or 10 gig, depending on the selected platform. So also we support wireless WAN connection, which are 3G, 4G, and LTE, and also the DSL high broadband connection using VDSL and ADSL. So the VDSL and the ADSL are mainly used in residential and small branch locations and are very much common in European countries. So let's talk about the software packages and licenses. So we need to talk a little bit more about this topic because I have seen a lot of questions from our customers and accountancies regarding software packaging, which includes the technology packages and feature licenses, and mainly a lot of ask around crypto throughput and IPsec tunnel scales with a combination of feature and throughput licenses. So let's start with the operating system. All of us know that ISR 4K runs iOS XE based operating system, right, which provides enhanced future proofing and improved performance and functionality. The iOS XE comes with two types of software models that support iOS XE capabilities and SD-WAN capabilities. So we will discuss about both these software models in our next slides. So there are two types of consolidated packages. One is Universal K9 and the other one is Universal NP-K9. So as you all know, the Universal image is a single image that contains all the technology licenses. The technology licenses need activation based on the feature that need to be enabled. Universal Images with K9 offers all the Cisco iOS features, including strong payload cryptography such as IPsec VPN, SSL VPN, and secure unified communications. The only difference between K9 and NP-K9 is that the NP-K9 doesn't support strong payload encryption, but there's still a limited security feature supported with NP-K9, like zone-based firewall and IPS. For that, we need to obtain a security NP-K9 licenses. So this slide provides the naming standards Cisco has been using for iOS XE operating systems. So many of us are unaware about what each of these abbreviations stand for. So here, this is a sample image name for ISR 4300 platform. So ISR stands for Integrated Services Router. The Universal stands for Universal Image. K9 for encryption support. 1693 is the iOS XE version. NP stands for No Payload Encryption, and SPA stands for this image is being digitally signed for production use. So this is an example for an iOS XE image. So here I'm giving you an example for an XE SD-WAN image. So the only difference that instead of Universal K9 in the classic iOS XE image, we have the UCM K9 here, which means that it's Universal Cloud Managed SD-WAN K9 image. So the software packages. So software packages contain technology packages and feature licenses. So basically it contains software features within a consolidated package, and each software package has an evaluation period which converts to an RTU, the right to use license, after the expiration of the evaluation period, which is 60 days. And as we discussed, like the technology packages are of three types: the Security K9, the UC K9, and Apex K9. The Security K9 package includes all the crypto features like all sorts of VPN, the IPsec, the Flex VPN, DM VPN, Get VPN, and other security features like zone-based firewall, NAT, AAA, and so on. The UC K9 includes all the unified communication related features such as Cube, SRST, SBC, and for all the application related features like AVC, flexible NetFlow, network-based application recognition, the wide area application services, the service provider technologies like MPLS, Layer 2, Layer 3 VPN, the Layer 2 tunneling mechanisms like VPLS, Ethernet over MPLS, and of course, we do support Indian-based networking with SD access and software-defined WAN. For that, we need to have the Apex K9 license installed on the ISR4K routers. Now, what is a software feature license? So the feature licenses entitles a user to access or unlock an additional feature that may or may not include with the technology package. So for the feature license need to be activated on a router, we need to have the respective technology package to be available, depend upon the feature that need to be activated. Feature licenses can be a honor-based license, which is converted to an RTU after the evaluation period, or it can be a non-honor based license where this license need to be obtained from the CCO and installed on the router boot flash. The two type of feature licenses are HCK and CME SRST. So HCK9 license is required to have full crypto functionality on the routers. It removes the curtailment enforced by the US government export restrictions on the encrypted tunnel count and the throughput. So starting from 16.8.1 XC release, we support up to 250 Mbps of crypto throughput and 1000 maximum tunnels. Prior to 16.8.1, the crypto throughput and tunnel scale were limited to 85 Mbps and 225 tunnels. And with the HCK9, this restriction is now removed. The CME SRST is a honor-based license that requires a UCK9 technology package to be available on the router, and this license will automatically convert to RTU-based license after the evaluation period expired. So here is a sample naming standard used for iOS XE software packages, which contains the technology packages and the feature licenses. Here, example provided here for an ISR4461 model. So you have the AX, which is the Apex K9, as well as we have the bundle PID, which is the voice plus security K9. So the XX and YY are colored in green because these values are gonna change, or it is variable based on the platform you choose or based on the license of the bundle you're gonna obtain for the customer. So the feature license example given here is for an ISR4330 and a 4451X. So this is HCK9 license. So FL stands for feature license. XX is variable based on the platform, and the abbreviation for HC is for high security. Now let's talk about throughput license. This is an important topic to know about, because most of the customers are very much concerned about how a throughput license can benefit and want to know the maximum performance of the router with different type of throughput licenses available with a combination of security and HCK9 licenses. So what is a throughput license? From the name itself, it defines that these licenses upgrade the default throughput or performance level on the router. The default throughput varies between platforms, and the throughput is controlled by the egress interface shapers. So there are two types of throughput licenses available. One is the performance license and one is the boost license. So now with these performance on-demand licenses, it has been made easy for our customer to increase the router capacity without being upgrade the whole hardware, and also to ensure that performance of the routers are not degraded when an additional services are added to the configuration. So these performance licenses are controlled by limiters or shapers on the egress interfaces. With the boost license, the router performance will be at its wild performance by removing any shapers or interface limiters on the egress interface. For the customer who need to have unthrottled throughput on ISR platform, the boost license can provide a throughput value between 1.4 Gbps on a lower end 4221 router and up to 10 Gbps on a higher end, which is 4461 ISR platform. And just to make a note that the throughput license are impacted only to the data plane traffic on the egress interface. So as Meena has already explained to you how the routers are going to increase the throughput or the performance values with these licenses, they use additional data plane CPU cores to increase performance in case of a ISR 4400. But for a 4331 and 4351 platforms, additional services plane can be converted to data plane core to increase the performance. So this table shows some information on the default shaper performance. What is the shaped performance with a performance license, and what is the wild performance with a boost license. And these figures are totally based on the IPsec internet mesh traffic without any other features enabled on the router. So this is a raw performance with only IPsec enabled on the router. The performance number can go down when we add additional services onto the router. So we will be sharing this slide with you, and you can go through this table in detail and ask any questions on the panel. So we need to talk about what are the crypto IPsec performance supported or offered on the ISR 4K platforms. I have not included all the platform in this slide, but just give a sample, an example for the crypto throughput performance for an ISR 4331 and 4431 using the security license, the combination of security plus 8sec license, and a combination of security performance and 8sec license. So the IPsec throughput is affected by the platform throughput license level, and it is up to 250 Mbps aggregate. So let's take the example given here for 4331. With the security license, it is limited to 100 Mbps, which is actually the initial throughput licensing level. To get a higher crypto throughput, we need to get a performance license, which can increase the crypto throughput up to 250 Mbps. And anything higher than 250 Mbps, we need an 8sec license. On a 4431, the base license is 500 Mbps, and out of it, the IPsec throughput is 250 Mbps with a security license. The 8sec license unthrottles it to 500 Mbps, and in order for you to get a 1 Gbps crypto throughput, you need to have add an additional performance license as well. So with the security plus 8sec plus performance license in combination, you can get up to 1 Gbps crypto throughput. And again, make a note that this crypto throughput numbers varies between platforms. So this is a paid example paid for a throughput license. So there are two types of throughput license we discussed: the performance license and the boost license. So the example given here is for performance and boost license for a 4451X and a 4350 ISR platforms. So FL stands for feature license, perf stands for performance throughput, and the boost stands for the boost throughput, which is in the wild performance. So now let's talk about XE image for SD-WAN. So the SD-WAN image based on Cisco ISR software is just not a standard Cisco ISR release. It does not just add SD-WAN features on top of the existing ISR capabilities. Instead, we have kept the existing Vitella SD-WAN framework in which the vManage act as a centralized network management system and manages the configuration of the Cisco ISR devices as well. So we need to talk about the DNA licensing. models, right? When we talk about XC SD-WAN imaging. So Cisco had introduced the DNA licensing model for enterprise routing portfolio since March 2018. With the DNA licensing model, we can ensure the ISR 4K is ready for application-aware capabilities to support SD access and SD-WAN. So what are the three licensing models supported with DNA? It is DNA Premier, DNA Advantage, and DNA Essentials. So with DNA Essential license, it comes with the Network Essential, which is a perpetual license. The Network Essentials contain all the features supported with iOS XE IP-based plus security packages. When we talk about DNA Advantage, it comes with Network Advantage license by default. And in traditional licensing package term, DNA Advantage provides all the features supported on iOS XE IP-based plus security plus Apex K9 package bundle. The DNA Premier comes with Network Advantage license, and it is the same as the previous Cisco One Advantage offer. In addition to all the features supported in DNA Essential and Advantage, it provides advanced cloud security, umbrella DNS security, advanced application and network visibility, a full stack WAN optimization with WAS, and so on. So how do we choose the right DNA subscription for our customers? We need to understand what are the basic features the customer would like to enable in their network. Whether the customer is running a software-defined access in their network, or whether the customer would like to only deploy a base automation and assurance capability with DNA licensing, or whether the customer is looking towards SD access and SD-WAN solution in future. What are their bandwidth requirements for their WAN connectivity? Is the customer running any critical application-aware routing and policies? And the customer want to manage their network. How do customer want to manage their network? Whether they need on-prem management or using with DNAC or using a cloud-based vManage solution. So there are different factors need to be identified in perspective to the customer deployment models and scale requirements before we choose the right DNA licensing tier. So the important point to note here is that all DNA licenses come with 3 or 5 years subscription terms. The bandwidth choices available for their WAN connectivity ranges between 10 Mbps to 10 Gbps based on the platform you choose for your customer. So this is a example DNA PID for ISR 4K platform for ISR4461. So the DNA stands for Digital Network Architecture, and XX is colored in green, which means that it is variable based on the platform. And I have also provided a sample PID for a cloud-based DNA license, which is DNA C1109 M2M 5-year term and 3-year term, and also one example PID for an on-prem based license. So let's look into the abbreviations of this. So DNA stands for Digital Network Architecture, C stands for the cloud-based, and P for on-prem. 100 M is the bandwidth allocated, and we support a bandwidth choice between 10 Mbps to 10 Gbps. A for Advantage, and E stands for Essential, and Y is the subscription term, could be 3 or 5 years. So just an important note to be given here is like starting from 16.10.1 XE release, the only licensing model we will be supporting on all the ISR platforms will be smart licensing, right? So only the smart licensing will be only more supported starting from 16.10.1. So there is a YouTube link given below. So this is the YouTube video recently uploaded by Meena, which talks about smart licensing in detail. So it is a 6-minute 15-second video and explains the step in its simplest way. So recommended everyone to watch the video for better understanding how we can convert the traditional licensing into smart licensing when customer upgrade the iOS XE image to 16.10.1. So lastly, I'm going to discuss about the Vita Edge branch portfolio. So this slide shows an overview of the Cisco SD-WAN V-Edge routers portfolio. So we have V-Edge 100 that comes with 100A, 100M, and 100WM models, and we have V-Edge 1000 and 2000 models as well. All of the V-Edge routers offer the same software functionality. The key differences between these platforms are in respect to the throughput they provide, the redundancy in the hardware components like for fan or power supplies, and also the density, the number of ports supported on these platforms. Some models of V-Edge 100 routers offer additional functionality in the form of power over Ethernet and integrated Wi-Fi. So important information to have a look into this comparison would be the traffic ports on these V-Edge routers. The V-Edge 100B, 100M, and 100WM comes with 5 integrated 10/100/1000 Mbps copper ports, where the V-Edge 1000 and 2000 support SFP ports. We offer 10 gig bandwidth on the V-Edge 2000 series with pluggable interface modules that can support either 2 10 gig SFP or 8 1 gig SFP. The PoE is supported only in the V-Edge 100M and 100WM models. So there is only one port supported for the PoE, and the PoE devices can go up to 15.4 watts of power through the Ethernet. And also we support integrated 2G, 3G, 4G LTE on the Edge 100M and 100WM. In addition to the LTE support in the Edge 100WM, it also comes with integrated wireless LAN antennas that support 2.4 or 5 GHz frequency, and also A, B, G, N, and AC.11 wireless standards. I mean, the choice of the platform truly depends upon the backplane throughput, the integrated bandwidth and performance values the V-Edge routers are going to offer for the growing need of our customers. So you can always go through the technical resources available at the below links, and you can ask your question in the community page, and we will try our best to get back to you on this. So with that, I'll be ending my session, and I will look forward to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shameel, and thank you everybody who has joined to this session. We won't be talking about the questions that you have submitted. Most of them have been resolved in the Q&A, but if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask them on the Ask the Expert event on that forum. Eric, Meena, and Shameel, they will be responding to all of them if you have any further questions regarding any of these branch routers or the topic. And also, just to close down the session, we would like to invite you to have a look into our social media channels. We're available on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on the technical application. There you can find information about upcoming events and also about activities that we are having and news on the community. And also for all of you who are looking for IT training in your own language, we have different local communities available in Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, and Russian. So if you're looking for any session like this one in your own language, you can have a look in those local communities. And also, if you're looking for further IT training regarding Cisco technologies and technology in general, the Cisco Learning Network always offers different courses and webinars like this one. So you can have a look to their sessions that they are going to have on this month and the upcoming ones. And also for all of you who have been on this session, and if you reply to one survey that we have after this event, it's a pop-up window that will appear on your screen, you will be able to redeem a 35% discount offer on any Cisco Press title. That is for all the people who assisted to this event and who fill out the survey that we post. that is the topic that I was mentioning to you. If you can let us know how we are doing, what kind of topics or things you would like to hear in future, that will be very helpful since we can provide events regards to them. And once again, thank you everybody. Thank you to the audience. Thank you, Meena, Shameel, and Eric for this presentation. And we hope to see you on the upcoming session. And we wish you have a wonderful time.